And welcome back to Inside Politics, your premier Sunday political talk show. And this morning we are having a conversation around the storm in Ruto's paradise. The young people decided in the last few days or weeks that they are going to take back the management of the affairs of this nation back to their homes, and once they considered, they took it to the streets. And now everyone is listening, not only in the country, but we've seen a lot of reaction from across the globe on what's happening in Kenya. The Reject Finance Bill hashtag has been trending for close to 2 weeks now. And President Ruto has allowed the young people to demonstrate. He's told them, go to the street, demonstrate all you want, but the decisions have to be made, and they'll be made by the institutions, either parliament or the executive. Anthony Ngeru is with us this morning. Dismas Mokua, Arnold Maliba, the storm in Ruto's paradise, is also here. And Fanyamambo Kiduthia. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming. In fact, we need to have a lady one of these weekends. But Maliba, the first question that I asked, you were not here, is if there's a storm in Ruto's paradise. Everyone agrees. Do you agree?
I do not think that President William Ruto had a paradise anyhow when he came to power. He had none of that. He walked into a storm. This is just one of those sub-layers of the storms he walked in. He found a dilapidated economy. He found a polarized country. He found a country that was tottering on the bridge of so many things. He's weathered, at least structurally, the economic storm, put it to bed. He's partly taken care of the old and recurring political problems, at least at institutional level, where now we do not have so much rift between the opposition and the government. Now we have got a newer challenge of what was there. I will remind you, Ken, that in 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, much earlier, even when we were putting up the Vision 2030, we spoke about the youth bulge coming from sometimes in 2022 all the way to 2030. And that is why the Vision 2030 was primarily to deal with some of these. If you read the Vision 2030 documents, you will actually see the situation now. Those guys looked like they were prophets. Somehow, the people who sit down to think through already knew that we would actually get here. So, the problems that people are trying to actually call storms in the party, those are incidental actions out of the grassroots elections we are taking care of. You know, during elections, even if it's a friendly election, people are jostling for space, and that is what you see in UDA. When you see people storming the party headquarters, it's because people are jostling for space. You've not seen so far anybody walking away. People are fighting from within. That jostling is incidental to the grassroots elections that we are doing, because we are giving the party back to the people. And the process of giving anything back to the people is never easy. That is one. Two, on the Gen Z and the millennials demonstrations that have been in the street, Ken, I will give you my own experience. On Tuesday, I somehow found myself in the streets of Nairobi.
Demonstrating or walking, or you went for lunch?
Somehow, most of what I would call the core government square, that is Harambee Avenue, Taifa Road, City Hall Way, and Parliament Road, were somehow out of reach. I had parked at the church at Holy Family Basilica before the whole thing blew up. By the time I actually got to the vehicle, it was 3 hours later on, meaning that at different times I ended up in small skirmishes here and there with people because they were literally everywhere. But let me say this. As a person who's organized demonstrations in the past, I am so proud of the people who organized the last demonstrations. I'm super proud of them. If there's anything that I struggled with when I was organizing young people to demonstrate for the National Youth Council, was actually telling people to behave, to be single-minded and focused on what brought them to the street. Mm-hmm. I walked around with my phone. I actually got assaulted, but I was assaulted by a millennial. An age mate of mine, a goon that walks around City Hall, that actually saw me as I walked through the crowds and said, Ruto, and then I'm a millennial like me, but for the Gen Zers, if you are driving, you actually told pass. Those kids were disciplined. Those kids are focused. And that is what civic education does. The kids we taught in social studies that when you demonstrate, it has to be non-violent. They actually have proved to us that that civic education works. And then after that, I asked a security officer friend of mine, and I asked him, why is it that the police was so brutal on us millennials when we went out? And this is what he answered me. He's still a serving officer, so that I don't name drop. He told me that millennials are extremely angry and violent. And that when we, the millennials, went to the streets, we did not go to demonstrate, we went for war. In fact, in his language, nyinyi mulikuwa mnakuja vita. He said millennials were so distracted and they were so full of distraction. And you can actually realize that even the destruction that happened in town, partly on last Tuesday, happened at night. And the people that I saw at night demonstrating are not the people I saw in the day demonstrating.
Did you know that they organized to demonstrate in faces? The people are there in the morning.
The good thing is that
two left at 6.
No, but the people at night were not dressed, were not the same cadre. There is a team that, especially by the millennials, are actually very jealous of the Gen Zers. They've realized that people can actually mobilize, come out, push and be heard. You know, we millennials are so selfish. It's about my degree, my wife, my children, my car, and everything else.
I want us to progress.
I'm saying this because Fanyamambo is here, Fanyamambo is there. Now, how did we get here in the short term? I want us to actually come to where we are here. I actually needed to just appreciate that in the organization, and by the way, there are millennials who organize, because I know some of the people who organize are my friends. I am from the civil society traditionally, so I know those animals. I know those creatures. When I talk about those animals, then we are friends. So I know the characters therein. And they did super work. These kids are focused. No distraction, no distraction, no violence. And that is why even the police really struggled. How do you deploy those ancient tools of dealing with the people like us who went to the street to Pambana, when it was Mapambano and everything else? These kids went to be heard, and that we must give it to them. Now, how did we get here? We did not get here by accident. Number one, as a country, we are on a cusp of a generational handover. That is a struggle at the party level, and you can see that both in major parties. There is the struggle between the baby boomers and the millennials. The noises you hear in UDA are largely problems because the millennials in the party, the Ndinyoros of this world and the others are jostling for space, and they have come of age. The other generation doesn't know how to deal with them. That is a challenge. And before we rest, you can see the same in ODM, by the way. If you actually are keen, you'll actually see the same noise on the other side.
When it started long, I think it started with Babu Namwamba and
that was earlier. Babu is not a millennial. I'm talking about people don't know how to deal with people like Babu. We know, for example, there. I'll tell you that because if you follow politics, you will know. Now, before we settle down, there is a new generational cohort of about 5 million voters who have shown up on the scene. And we don't know how to deal with them. That demographic change.
Who are we?
As a country, we did not prepare for them.
The country, you can.
Let me move on. Let me just.
But you've spoken so much. These guys will sleep.
Can I execute that point? Can I just finish that point?
Yes.
I say this. I will take responsibility on behalf of the party and the regime. No one has told me to do that, but I'm actually doing it because I have a head on my shoulders. And tell you that partly I support what Dismas said before I got here, when he spoke about there has been a failure in communication. It is advocacy that is king when it comes to communicating the impact of policy. And on that, I will take responsibility purely because, number one, this is the first time in the last 15 years that the social media has not been manned from the government aspect for 2 years. We have not had people standing watch on social media
and you
on
don't
our side.
To.
No, those are your words, those are not mine.
I'm asking. It's a question.
So I'm just telling you, so number one, that the cyber world, the cyber...
Why are you so afraid to answer
nation,
that question?
No, I will come to it. I'm saying I was actually building my case. So number one, we have not had people stand guard or fought for us in the cyber world. For 2 years, since elections, we've not had a team that takes care of that. Two, we, on the other side, assumed that the campaign communication we had would be the same as we communicate today. You see, the policies we took the last financial year have worked. I can list so many things that have worked out of that. But we have not. And I must say that because this is a forte I work in. So if we get to a place where we are defending everything and don't take responsibility, sometimes you do not make progress. So on that particular bit, we've not communicated well. And Ken, I will also be a little bit bold and say there has also been a little bit of arrogance from our side. It is important to say that so that, you know, and the people in the street are telling us they know the importance of taxes. They know. They're just telling us, communicate better, engage us better, because whatever you are doing, we understand, but you should engage us differently.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now it will not end. He's spoken 6 minutes straight.
You need to give Ngeru at least.
No, Ngeru has been speaking before you.
He has not spoken after me.
On your team.
He's on your team. Ngeru will speak, yes.
Let me say something.
Yes.
You see, he said that there is no paradise for the president, and that the president walked into a storm, and that the president found himself in a storm. He could be right, he could be wrong. But let us assume that he's right. So how do you deal with a dilapidated economy if you find one? You allocate 1.4 billion to the first lady and the deputy first lady.
That is an old
You allocate
argument.
600 million. I did
Everyone
not
was
interfere.
quiet when
You
were
allocate
speaking,
600 million to the renovation of a deputy president's house that was built at 400 million. You are dealing with a dilapidated economy. You travel at 200 million. You're dealing with a dilapidated economy. The curtains at the DP's house will cost 10 million because the economy is so dilapidated. So the best way to deal with a dilapidated economy is to buy curtains for 10 million. And then you can build a diocese state house for, you know, a diocese, kitu ya kukanyanga simungeka tu mbao hapo, 700 million. And then you take 20 billion in the name of housing levy, affordable housing levy, which has now ended up in treasury bills, I don't know, bonds, something they went to buy that we had not agreed with them as government. It is not true. That's your problem. Now, how do you deal with a dilapidated economy? You destroy houses for people in Mathare and Korogosho and all the other places that are purported to be on rivers, and I can take you to Kileleshwa where we have petrol stations that are built on top of rivers and nothing has happened to them because those ones are in Kileleshwa and Lavington. I know them and you know them, and even right now, if we check on Google Maps, we can see
this
them. Please don't interfere.
He says only one petrol station.
Maybe they need a show on their own.
No, why was it not? No, why was it not?
It was knocked down.
Were the others brought down by no?
And we didn't start building it this year. It was actually built under the regime he was defending.
Maliba, can we allow him to prosecute his point? Then you come back with the response.
Okay.
Yes.
Were the houses in Mathare earmarked by NEMA? Were they having NEMA conversations?
Were the laws in place?
No. Maliba, these houses that were brought down in Mathare, bulldozer ilikuja, Kariobangi na Mathare, because they belong to poor people, they were brought down. There was no NEMA, there was no consultation, there was no nothing. But that petrol station he's talking about in wherever it is, that one needs NEMA. It needs special protections. It needs a special consideration. Why are we doing this? Now, you come, and how do you fix a dilapidated economy? You have your closest people giving 20 million in harambees in one weekend, and they were not able to do that before this administration took power. 3 million, 4 million, 20 million in one weekend. It's not true, but those clips are there, and he's there in white trousers. By the standard, the icon of the SI unit of mtu amefika ni kuvaa white trouser na kwenda harambee unatoa 20 million in one weekend. Honestly, you cannot deny what every other Kenyan... You cannot deny what every other Kenyan can prove to you, that this is so and so. We are seeing him, ametoa 20 million. How do you want to go and tell Kenyans like KJ that those things are fake and everybody can see? And he's happy to have those clips online. And before this government came into power, that 20 million was not available. Inatoka wapi
It
pesa?
was.
Where? Which harambe do we?
William Ruto was doing harambes in this country.
We are not talking
all of us
about-
until
we
we
are
spoke
not
about No,
we're not talking about
some
it.
of those guys are representing the president.
So is the money from the president they are taking to the
Oscar
ground?
Sudi has been doing harambes before. Ken, what I just wanted to do is that we cannot bring down this level, especially when we're having a serious national conversation on Twitter spaces and in the streets of Nairobi. We cannot go this way. Ken, we are here partly because of people like Fanyamambo. Fanyamambo has eloquently and with a straight face lied to this nation continuously by actually, you know, my pastor, Bishop Matthew Monde of old, will say that uongo ni kitu yoyote ambayo inafanana na ukweli. Fanyamambo says things that look like truth, but they are not truth.
Yeah.
So, this is where we are beginning from.
What if it's
let me tell you,
from his perspective?
No, truth cannot be.
From his perspective,
No,
it's true.
there is no...
But how can you be the judge of what is true?
I will justify. I will actually qualify my statement.
Because
I will.
what you say, you believe is right. Like right now, what you're saying, you believe is right, but what he's saying is not right.
I actually was going to qualify that because
When I say
the
parts
truth,
have been taxed,
the
they say
truth
it's a
is
lie.
not relative. The truth is not relative. So I'll tell you why we are here. One of the reasons why we have got people on the streets is this. Number one, there was the Bunge la Mwananchi type of people around there, and I'll take blame for that.
Kimbi.
The Kimbi-Kimbis of others, they laid the foundation.
I need
And
this gentleman also
they,
to speak.
I'll actually,
Yes.
so let me just say that.
Make
They
it very short, yeah.
laid the foundation. And he actually is cut from the Kimbi-Kimbi. This one is just a school Kimbi-Kimbi, a clever one. So they laid the foundation. Then secondly came Baba and Azimio during the last year. They called us all manner of names, and we assumed that Kenyans will understand when we speak simple. And he spoke about treasury, not, for example, breaking these things down. You see, we have had a popular version of the budget now, but there are difficult things. I think we've spoken about that. Things like the finance bill, quite more difficult. That's why people like Fanyamambo can actually pick it, spin it, and run away with. Wanasema vitu ambazo zinafanana.
So hakuna motor vehicle circulation tax.
Finally. So when Baba came in, he did the second layer. And now we have got a generation that, number one, is doing a rite of passage. They are coming in and announcing their arrival.
They have age.
We did not counter all of that. And I'm saying, the assumption. This we must take responsibility, because politics is about two things.
I'm just wondering.
Communication
I need to speak to you. But Maliba, the assumption from your explanation is that this is happening in Kenya and not across the globe. That only young people are coming out in Kenya, and yet you mentioned the US. That all the springs and all those things that was there, and all those people are there.
There's no spring.
Let me
the young
to
people
this.
in the street are not demonstrating because of taxes. They are demonstrating because of failure of communication.
No. I sat with the young people here, and you cannot discount their statements.
In 30 seconds. In only 30 seconds.
Yes.
Ken Mijungu, if we continue to allow Maliba to speak,
he's taking over.
One thing we are going to do, because I love him and he's my friend and he knows he's been my friend for many years.
Yes.
One of the first things we shall have to do is to enhance security for him, because he's not going to continue walking in
me on
Kenya.
set here.
I'm just saying.
He's attacking insecurity.
He told us.
We cannot allow that. We cannot allow that.
He told us that people threatened him. He told us that people threatened him.
Not people. I said one goon around City Hall. And actually, the Gen Z has actually defended me.
Gentlemen, I need to mute your mics.
The issue has been quite clear. If you talk to the younger generation, the issue is not taxes, but the issue is appropriation of those taxes.
Yes.
The main issue here is trust, rather than what the government is trying to put forward. Because if you look at some of the conversation that we are having, we are targeting the wrong place. We are not targeting the bullseye. And some of the issues that we need to converse about is our investment in human capital. We should converse about what we are doing in terms of production and manufacturing. Fanyamambo has clearly stated that I think he's obsessed with the taxation on pads. But what the government was trying to do is disassociate itself with, or rather, tax more on imports so that we can support the local manufacturers. Though there have been there has been a conversion
the question is, Anthony.
Yes.
I'm sorry for cutting you short.
Yes.
The question is, in the meantime, what happens? You tax imports to support local production.
Yes.
So as you tax before those local production, because I remember someone in Parliament even said, like, what was the name they used? Oh, Junaid Mohammed. Junaid Mohammed sanitary pads factory somewhere in Migori, right? That's the example. Before this factory is set, that is where the question is. Before this factory is built and starts operating, you'll still be taxing the imports that are now from 55 to 120 shillings, right? So what happens within this period? That was the question the young people are asking. They're not saying it's wrong to support local industries, but they're saying, as you support the local industry to thrive, what happens to us? That was the question. I know. That was the question.
Yes. And this is what I'm trying to say. Instead of taking that quality that has been imported, we can produce our own good quality, which is of the same quality.
Very true.
That has been
but
imported.
in the meantime, what happens in the middle there before those factories are set up?
We have the existing ones.
I'm talking to Anthony.
Yes.
One is right behind
of course.
here.
Yes. Of course, we already have.
Because that's the question the young people sat here and asked. What happens?
You see, from your question, it's like we do not produce sanitary pads here in Kenya. But we do produce those sanitary pads.
But
and
it's
we need
not enough. That's why we supplement with imports.
It is enough. It is enough. Yes,
what
it
we
is
produce
enough.
here is enough.
Yes,
okay.
It is enough. And those are some of the conversations that we need to have as a country. So personally, I feel like we are targeting the wrong spaces, and those are some of the conversations that we need to have as a country. Yes.
Justina is just telling me people from northern Kenya cannot still afford even what is being offered with the local imports. They are not going to school during their periods, right? And there's the period shame and all those things because they can't still even afford with the local ones that are available. So as you encourage, it's still expensive for them. So if it was reduced to a level that is affordable even to them, I think that's the conversation these young people want. Yes.
You know, maybe there could be a case for subsidies so as to enable people facing economic challenges to access those funds.
Isn't the government alive of that fact?
And you know, it happens all over the world that if there is a good that needs to be provided by the government
In mass.
in mass and majority of the population are not able to access, then there's a case for subsidies. And that's part of the reason why Gen Z is on the streets. They're saying that there are some pertinent issues in the national decision-making body that we need to make a contribution. So it's not going to be public participation as usual. Because normally in the budget-making process, the treasury mandarins would invite people to KICC, they're given a cup of tea and mandazi, and you know, people are said to have validated the documents by merely signing an attendance sheet. This time round, it's going to be proactive. But in my view, to make progress and to ensure that all stakeholders are happy, we may even need to review how we make our budgets. And times above number, we have proposed that it may be prudent to move away from program-based budgeting. We go back to zero-based budgeting. So that
that is the technical language that you're trying to discount here. So
yeah, I'm going to explain.
Yes.
You've got a principal secretary in every ministry who has got two responsibilities: accounting officer in charge of money and authorized officer in charge of the human resource. Now, because you are in charge of money and you've got a bird's eye view or an helicopter view of the projects in your state department, every year you should start your budget making process from a clean sheet. You know, a clean piece of paper. You start from zero so that you build it up. If you are, say, in charge of interior, you start from zero, you build it up. But what tends to happen now is our budget last year was 1 billion. So next year we are going to get 2 billion.
Yes.
Yeah, let's increase it. Now, if you start from zero-based budgeting, then even Gen Z will follow up and say that the State Department, say, for interior, is proposing to buy this kind of weapons for the Kenya Police Service and everything else. So they will follow and understand. But when you drop a parachute figure, then people start smelling a rat. You give people like Fanyamambo room here to start casting aspersions on the resources that are required to be used for state house.
But Didmus, let me ask you, don't you think it was ridiculous to have a proposal to renovate the Deputy President's house at 600, a house that was built for 4? Didn't you think that was ridiculous?
You know,
it's a simple question.
Yeah. You see, it's a simple question, but no, we are not in court, so that you are looking for a no.
20 years ago.
You're using a yes and no.
Yeah.
First of all, the Deputy President took time to move to his residence. He said it was undergoing renovations.
Yes.
And then when he moved in, then a few minutes later, he says that I need a certain amount of money again for renovations. Now, if you break it down, then you say that the first amount of money did X% renovation. Now we are doing Y renovation. Then people would understand. Because every rational Kenyan expects the president to have a decent accommodation, decent offices.
Yeah.
Every rational Kenyan expects the deputy president to have decent accommodation, decent offices. So if you know, I'll go back and say that it's a challenge of communication, political communication. Then number two, when the National Treasury comes up with proposals, before they become law, they're not law. And one would expect a lawyer to understand that there's a law-making process. You come up with a raft of proposals. You can even suggest you're going to tax oxygen, but as the president signed it, that's into law, not yet. That is the misinformation and disinformation we are talking about.
So
some of it's been generated in this conversation. No, the gates are always running.
And also, let us, even with 400 million, we say this has actually been going around. Let us just say, let's just say it this way. He spoke about 400 million that was used to build the Deputy President's house. 20 years ago, when Mudi Awori was moving into that house,
Mudi Awori stayed in that house?
No. Yes. It was during his time that building was actually done.
But
I'm just telling you.
Yeah, he didn't stay in that house.
400 million years, 400 million. 20 years ago
was a billion
cannot be, it could be probably 3. I just need to do mathematics here. But then what I'm saying is that we are picking off the shelf arguments, polarizing stuff,
but that
smaller
is
things that are running out.
Why do you want Kenyans to go and pick complicated things out of that bill to talk about? Why can't they just pick small things like the sanitary pass,
I'm telling you,
all that?
All those things that are being, it is this sloganeering and You see,
There's no
this
slogan.
this
Ken,
blame
this is a similar
generating.
voice. Let me say
we take a
something.
break.
Blame
Yeah,
generation.
let me say
Yeah.
something. This is one voice.
Maliba, I'll come back. I apologize. I'll come back to you.
I will allow him to speak, but just allow me to do
It's
that.
not you to allow me to speak. It's Ken. Ken, look at it this way.
Yeah, because we need to take a break.
This needs to be very clear. If I am a father and I come home and my bedroom is leaking and my children's bedroom is leaking, I will start with my children's bedroom. I cannot come and be this selfish father who begins by renovating my bedroom, nipake rangi, nipake... No, please.
That is not a right argument.
You cannot be
for
doing
obvious
like
reasons.
that.
Ken, we are building an analogy.
Maliba, surely we can't do
clearly
this.
Maliba, you know
structured,
you're distracted.
sentimentalized,
You're
sensationalized these
distracted
things.
because you have an
If you
opportunity. We
allow
have an
these
hour.
lies,
We have an
it
hour
is
to
these
discuss
lies.
this.
It's allowing
It's
this
his
kind
point.
of-
Why can't you
fine,
allow him
that's what I'm
to
saying.
prosecute his
That's what-
point?
that's what
This
Mark
is the
saying.
Mungatana
If we
habits we've been taught
if
that are
we
not
allow-
working well for this country.
If we allow, this is...
Maliba,
No.
regardless if he's right or wrong, everyone has an
I was
opportunity
saying
on
he
this
interrupted.
table.
When I interrupted him, it's a problem.
No.
He
No,
interrupted
he's
me when
not
I was saying,
interrupted you.
I didn't even finish the 400
We
million.
have to take a break and reorganize how we are going to communicate on this table this afternoon. All right, let's take a break.